Alright, AMP. This video is over an overview of the endocrine system. You should have your notes that I gave you. And let us begin. Endocrine cells are glandular cells that release their secretions into extracellular fluid. We define hormones as chemical messengers that are released into one tissue and transported by the bloodstream to reach its target cell, which is the affected cell, and other tissues. And it works in conjunction with the nervous system. And their similarities are both systems rely on the release of chemicals that bind to specific receptors on target cells. Both systems share various chemical messengers. For example, norepinephrine and epinephrine are called hormones when released into the bloodstream, and neurotransmitters when released across synapses, which I don't remember if we discussed in Chapter 8. Both systems are primarily regulated on negative feedback control mechanisms, which we'll learn more about that in this chapter. And both systems coordinate and regulate activities of other cells, tissues, and organs, and systems and maintain homeostasis. So we're going to look at the diagram on page 333, which I gave you a handout that goes over this stuff here, and you're supposed to list all of these chemicals and hormones. In chapter 16, you'll need to go in chapter 6 for digestive tract. Go to chapter 16 and look for those hormones. It won't be on the test, but you'll want to know it. Some structures of hormones. Amino acid derivatives. Some hormones are usually small molecules that are structurally similar to amino acids. This group includes epinephrine or epi, norepinephrine, thyroid hormones, and melatonin. Epinephrine is also known as the adrenaline that you feel when you're doing something exciting, such as riding a roller coaster or doing something you shouldn't do. Norepinephrine is just another form of epinephrine. It has a little bit of different structure to it, but it's similar. Peptide hormones. Peptide hormones consist of chains of amino acids. This group includes hormones such as from ADH and oxytocin to small proteins such as growth hormones and prolactin. ADH we will learn about somewhere here. I think when we go over the pituitary gland. Because I remember typing it out. So, the peptide hormones are the largest class of hormones. These include hormones secreted from the hypothalamus, pituitary gland, heart, kidneys, thymus, digestive tract, and pancreas. So, going back to these, pituitary gland, hypothalamus, heart, kidneys, digestive tract, all these. Well, not everything from the chart, but you know what I mean. Lipid derivatives, there are two classes of lipid derivatives, steroid hormones and eicosanoids, and are the two classes of these. Steroid hormones are lipids that are derived from cholesterol. Steroid hormones are released by the reproductive organs and adrenal glands. Shoot. So, right here, in here. Eicosanoids are fatty acid-based compounds derived from the 20-carbon fatty acid arachidonic acid. Eicosanoids, which include the prostaglandins, coordinate local cellular activities and affect enzymatic processes in extracellular fluid, including blood clotting. And then here is the role of a target receptor, cell receptors, in hormonal action. And I'm going to read something from the book. For a hormone to affect a target cell, that cell must have receptors that combine the hormone and initiate a change in cellular activity. The hormone in this illustration affects skeletal muscle tissue, but not neural tissue because only the muscle tissue has the appropriate receptors. And this is all in your book. Mechanisms of hormones. Hormones alter cellular operations by changing the identities, activities, locations, or quantities of important enzymes and structural proteins in various target cells. A target cell sensitivity is determined by presence or absence of a specific receptor with which a given hormone interacts. Hormones that do not bind to cell membrane receptors do not have direct effects on target cells. Instead, when these hormones bind to an appropriate receptor, they are considered first messengers that trigger the appearance of a second messenger in the cytoplasm. The link between the first and second messengers usually involves the G protein, an enzyme complex that is coupled to a membrane receptor. The G protein is activated when a hormone binds to the hormone's receptor at the membrane surface. One of the most important second messengers is click AMP, or CAMP. Its appearance depends on an activated G protein, which activates an enzyme called adenylate cyclase. CAMP activates kinase enzymes, which attach a high-energy phosphate group, PO43 negative, to another molecule in a process called phosphorylation. The secretion and distribution. Hormone release occurs where capillaries are abundant and the hormones quickly enter the bloodstream for distribution throughout the body. Free hormones are inactivated when they diffuse out of the bloodstream and bind to receptors on target cells. They are absorbed and broken down by certain liver or kidney cells, or they are broken down by enzymes in the plasma or interstitial fluids. Keynote. Hormones coordinate cell, tissue, and organ activities on a sustained basis. They circulate in the extracellular fluid and bind to specific receptors on or in target cells. They then modify cellular activities by altering membrane permeability, activating or inactivating key enzymes, or in changing genetic activity. Endocrine activity, specifically hormonal secretion, is controlled by negative feedback mechanisms. In this case, a stimulus, so going back to chapter 8, remembering what a stimulus is, triggers the production of a hormone whose direct or indirect effects reduce the intensity of the stimulus. And now we have a long thing here, but I'm going to try to kind of sum it up here. Coordinating centers in the hypothalamus regulate the activities of the nervous and endocrine system in three ways. The hypothalamus secretes regulatory hormones that control the activity of endocrine cells in the anterior pituitary gland. There are two classes of regulatory hormones: releasing and inhibiting. The hypothalamus acts as an endocrine organ by synthesizing two hormones, ADH and oxytocin, which are then released into the circulation and, at the posterior pituitary gland. The hypothalamus contains autonomic nervous system centers that control the endocrine cells of the adrenal medullae through sympathetic innervation when the sympathetic division is activated. The adrenal medullae releases hormones into the bloodstream. And then you can see all of that here, which is three mechanisms of the hypothalamic control over endocrine organs. And that concludes this video.